And now ecologically, this is the hot spot where things are really going on, because ponds like the one we have in the foreground here, um, these were created by the eruption. As I think I mentioned, we had a five-fold increase in aquatic habitat. So right out here in these ponds, there's some pretty neat stuff going on with frogs, toads, and salamanders. They're breeding in huge, huge numbers down here. This is a neat plant because it normally grows at high elevations, so it's designed to live in a pretty tough place. It's got really thick, fuzzy leaves which help protect it from the sun. It's very low growing because that's often a windy place to live. And those two things right there make it really ideally suited for here. The other neat thing about this plant is it takes nitrogen from the air and inoculates it into the soil, because there's a little nodules on the root system of this plant that take that nitrogen and push it into the soil. And that's important because the ash from the 1980 eruption lacks nitrogen, which is a really important thing for plants to grow. So this is a plant that kind of paved the way for a lot of other plants to make it. If I just reach in here, just the presence of the plant being there, there's a little leaf litter that dies back each year, and that provides a little organic matter, which allows a little bit of improves the site. And then the big thing this does is it catches seeds blown in on the wind. Seeds will blow in, they get trapped against this, and you get what I call nature's fan plan. One plant gets started, and then plants ring out or fan out from that individual, like so, and then eventually one little patch over here is going to interconnect with this little patch here, and you'll get a bigger island of vegetation that forms.
Is this some of the grass that might have come from elk poop?
This is some of the grass that might have come from elk poop in here, and this is one of the neat things down here. This is the largest elk herd in the state of Washington, lives out in the blast zone of Mount St. Helens. It created a huge opening in the forest and created a big meadow-like environment. A lot of people look out here and say, well, what do they eat? But if you're an elk, you've got an awful lot to eat, and elk are having a huge impact on the makeup of our plant communities here at Mount St. Helens. And they do that by planting plants in the ways I talked about, by leaving the little brown pellets behind in the seed sources. And they also prune plants. Out here on the hummocks where we are right now, we expected to see three kinds of trees growing down here, but instead there's really one tree that's dominating. The tree that's really dominating over here are alder, red alder and Sitka alder, and they apparently have a lot of silica in their leaves, which make them taste not so good to an elk. They're hard to digest, so elk don't eat them. Maybe they're like Brussels sprouts, I don't know, but but they don't taste good to elk, so the elk don't eat them. Whereas like the tree right here in front of us, this is a willow tree. This is a preferred browse species for elk, and you rarely see them getting very tall out here. They look like little bonsai trees because the elk are always pruning them back. The other tree we expected to find out here are cottonwoods. I don't see a single cottonwood right around where we have stopped. And cottonwood basically come in two shapes. They're often 2 or 3 feet high, but 8 to 10 feet in diameter, because the elk are constantly pruning them back, so they don't let them grow up, but they can grow out. Or you'll see a cottonwood that's 35 or 40 feet high, and that's a cottonwood that's beaten the battle of the elk. It's been able to grow taller than an elk can reach, and once it's done that, it's in the clear, and they do pretty well. But alder, what we're seeing out here today, this is the forest of the future at Mount St. Helens, and I wouldn't be surprised within the next 20 years or so that you are looking at nothing but alder all the way up towards the mountain. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if our view of Mount St. Helens would be partially obscured from where we're standing right now, just because it's changing very, very quickly.